So a while ago I came up with this idea which I thought would be pretty fun to do, and all it is a blind producer collab. So I reached out to 9 other producers, and these producers live all over the world, produce all different genres of music, so it should be pretty interesting to see kind of what we get and what we can come up with. But basically all I did was I asked for a very specific loop from different people. So for example, I asked for like a kick loop, snare loop, clap loop, melody loop, chord progression, that sort of thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and piece all these loops together and make them work in some sort of way. And then I'm going to add some sort of bass line, so probably some 808s or something like that. But I do think this will be a fun little experiment and kind of interesting to see how this thing works out. Now, in order to make this fair, I do think we need to come up with some rules, because I don't want this to be a situation where I get in here and I just start chopping up the melody, chord progression, and just creating my own thing out of it. I want to make sure that the loops stay intact whenever possible. So rule number 1 is you can't change up the loops unless you absolutely have to in order to make it work with everything else. Other than that, I feel like processing is fair game as far as to like change the way something sounds and to try and make everything fit together better, as long as we keep the loops intact. All right, so let's jump in and see what we can come up with. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and take a listen to all these loops and we'll see if we can come up with some sort of game plan. All right, so first things first, what I'm going to try and do is find a good tempo to make this track. So I'm probably going to load up the chord progression and the melody and just kind of experiment with some things and see what tempo makes the most sense. And then we'll just kind of go from there. All right, so I think I found a good tempo for this track. We're at 150 BPM right now. We'll see whether or not I have to change that as we continue. But basically all I've done is I've changed the tempo of the chord progression from 140 BPM to 150 BPM, and I just kept the main melody the same. And surprisingly, these two things just work together right off the bat. I didn't even have to change the key of the melody or the chord progression, so I was not expecting that to happen. If you remember, our melody was only 4 bars, so that does mean I did have to loop it over here, and then our chord progression actually resolves on this E major chord, which was kind of interesting, and I did have to transpose the melody in order to make it fit with that E major chord. So all I did was I went into my channel settings here and I just moved this pitch down 300 cents, which is the same as 3 semitones or 3 half steps if you're looking at a keyboard. So that's really all it took to fit these things together. Let's take a listen. All right, so let's see if I can get this counter melody to fit along with the chord progression and the other melody. All right, so this counter melody didn't really fit quite as well as the rest of them, which is not surprising, but I did get it to work. So all I had to do was transpose this original melody from D major down 3 half steps, and I did have to chop it up a bit to make it fit with the chord progression. So he had this middle section of the melody, which was doing something completely different, and I wanted to try and use as much of that as possible to try and keep the loop intact. So I did have to loop this original first part of the melody into this last chord here to fit with the chord progression, and then where it changes into to the E major, I was able to use this middle section, and basically again I transposed it up. So basically from where we went up 4 more semitones or 4 half steps to make that fit with that E major chord. So this is what it sounds like with just the chord progression and the counter melody. And this is what it sounds like all together. All right, so next I'm just gonna go ahead and start loading up the rest of these loops, and we'll see how they all fit together. I'm gonna try and use these claps as like percussion, or like kind of like a hi-hat almost. So I'm gonna make this way faster like this, but then I need to chop off this little first section here. Cool. Next we're gonna get hi-hat. Effects loop. And then all we have left is this little percussion loop here. So we got a kick, snare, clap, effects, percussion loop. All right, so I've got all this stuff sort of just thrown together kind of roughly. We're gonna get into sort of mixing and arranging and stuff in a little bit. But first, I've got to come up with some sort of 808 loop. I think I'm gonna go to my Ultimate Trap kit that I'm working on. And I do have a couple 808s in here, which one of them I like a lot. And basically, I'm just gonna play an 808 pattern that matches the kick pattern. This track is hard. It's hard. Those melodies are like not trappy. This is tough. It's gonna be tough to like fit all this together in a way that actually sounds cool, because the 808 slides sound just weird.
A few moments later.
All right, so I've come up with an 808 pattern, which I think is gonna work for now. I may want to tweak it a little bit as we continue with this track, but let's go ahead and take a listen to what we got so far. All right, so I was actually able to change this original melody sound into almost like a flute sound, kind of by accident. I was just really messing around trying to see what I could come up with and experiment with it. So at first I added some fruity fast distortion, and then I added some isotope vinyl. Then I added a bit crusher, and then I added some fruity delay 3. And then I added this filter, which just filtered out all the high frequencies and gave it sort of that flute sound. All right, so I've been working on this for a while now, and I think I've got this counter melody sounding a little bit more like it goes with the rest of the track. It's just such a dancey, plucky sound. It's really difficult to, make it work with everything. So I've basically just soaked it in effects, especially reverb and delay. So basically I added an EQ, then I added a low pass filter, then I added the stereo effect, which makes it sound a little bit off center and then also sort of back in the mix more. And then I added some fruity fast distortion. And then I added some EQ, some isotope vinyl. I added this M Auto Pan plugin, which is pretty cool. And it basically just automatically pans it left and right. Added some fruity reverb, fruity flanger, and some fruity delay 3. All right, so one thing I just realized is that I never asked anyone to send me any sort of fills. And I don't want to get too crazy adding like a whole bunch of extra stuff, but I do think we need some fills. So I'm just gonna add something really simple real quick. So I don't want this video to last forever, so I'm just gonna fast forward to the end where I've finished arranging this and at least done sort of a rough mix and master of it. So here we go. All right, Alright, so before we take a listen to the finished product, I just want to say shout out to all the producers who are involved in this. I appreciate you guys for sending me the loops, and I am going to be including links in the description of this video so you guys can check out the producers who are involved in this. So be sure to do that. Also, if you like this video, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know if you want me to do a video like this in the future. And if you want to be a part of a video like this in the future, go ahead and just get in touch with me on Instagram, or you can join my Discord server, which is actually probably a better place to get in touch with me. So I'll be sure to leave links in the description of this for that as well. And without further ado, let's take a listen to the final product.